Labour approve their leaked manifesto. Corbyn claims it will transform lives.
Straight on, Jeremy. And away, give us away.
The radical document proposes renationalising parts of the energy industry and scrapping tuition fees. It also calls for unions to be given more power, but says it won't make false promises on immigration.
Our manifesto will be an offer, and we believe the policies in it are very popular. An offer that will transform the lives of many people in our society.
The Tories claim it's a return to the 1970s. We'll have a look at the document in detail. Also tonight, rising prices and a squeeze on household income. The warning from the Bank of England. New treatments mean HIV is no longer the death sentence it once was. And a special report on the huge rise of fake food poisoning claims by British tourists.
This is the ITV Evening News with Mary Nightingale.
Good evening. The Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn today hailed his party's election manifesto as one that would transform lives and work for the many. He wouldn't confirm what was in it, but it didn't really matter. The draft contents had been leaked out hours before. It contains some radical policies such as renationalising the railways and energy industry and scrapping tuition fees. The Conservatives said if Mr Corbyn won power, he would take Britain right back to the 1970s. Rachel Younger is following the Labour campaign and reports on the leaked manifesto.
Entering stage left, Labour's leading man finally facing his audience almost 24 hours after the most unexpected of twists.
Left to right, centre, up, down. Shall I number you off?
He may have cut a solitary figure, but Jeremy Corbyn said the shadow cabinet and Labour's ruling body were now firmly united behind the manifesto.
We've just unanimously agreed the contents of it. We've amended a draft document that was put forward in the most informed, interesting, sensible discussion and debate in our party. Our manifesto will be an offer, and we believe the policies in it are very popular. An offer that will transform the lives of many people in our society. So nobody's ignored, nobody's forgotten, and nobody's left behind.
Of course, we only have the unamended version of that document, but the leaked manifesto promises the renationalisation of the railways, bringing railways back into public ownership, delivering improvements, including freezing fares. The energy market would also be taken back into public ownership, partially at least, with a publicly owned energy company in every region of the UK. On tuition fees, education should be free, and Labour would restore this principle. The NHS would see £6 billion extra in annual funding through increasing income tax for the highest 5% of earners. And on immigration, Labour will not make false promises on immigration numbers, but there is no real detail here, aside from reasonable management of migration. We weren't meant to be talking about any of this just yet, and this morning Jeremy Corbyn refused to talk at all, pulling out of a planned poster launch to deal with the fallout from the leak.
Are you happy with the manifesto?
Leaving others arriving at the manifesto meeting to sell his vision.
Do you think it's what ordinary Labour voters want, though?
I absolutely do. I'm absolutely certain that ordinary Labour voters want an increase in the minimum wage, the abolition of zero-hour contracts, agency workers dealt with, investment in our industries.
But behind the scenes, the drama kept unfolding. The main players struggling to stick to the script.
It's not a great day that it's been leaked.
Reporters fixated on the leak, trying to work out who'd done it.
The leak's embarrassing, though, isn't it?
Well, you shouldn't be dealing with, should you?
Even a cameraman injured in the scrum as Jeremy Corbyn was driven in.
It's chaotic, confusing, exactly the image of the party the Conservatives have been working so hard to paint. But this is something Labour have brought entirely on themselves.
No wonder the Prime Minister out on the campaign trail looked so uncharacteristically cheerful.
Well, I think what we see from the issue around the Labour Party's manifesto is, first of all, it's pretty shambolic, the way that their manifesto has come out. I think that shows the sort of chaos that we would see from a Labour government. But crucially, if you look at what they're suggesting, if you take their manifesto overall, actually what they're suggesting is taking us back to the past.
And I know you're all looking forward to reading it.
After his unexpected manifesto dress rehearsal, the Labour leader promised a production of the real thing, complete with full costings, in the next few days.
Goodbye.
With that, he disappeared into the wings. Who wouldn't want to be a fly on the wall in there? Rachel Younger, ITV News, Central London.
Well, Labour's draft document is 45 pages long and contains many other eye-catching policies. They include enforcing workers' rights with a Ministry of Labour and collective bargaining through unions. 0-hours contracts and unpaid internships would be banned. Pensioners would have the so-called triple lock guaranteed, keeping their pensions in line with the cost of living. 100,000 council and housing association homes would be built every year to tackle the housing crisis. The so-called bedroom tax would be scrapped and benefits for under 21s reinstated. £8 billion would be pledged to improving care. 15-minute care visits would be scrapped. There'd be no tax rises for people earning below £80,000 a year, but large corporations would pay a little more tax. Well, those policies are aimed at winning over voters in marginal constituencies like Telford in Shropshire. The Conservatives hold it by just a few hundred votes, and Labour will be hoping that they can take it back. So how do voters there feel about some of the manifesto's ideas? Our political correspondent Paul Brand found out.
Telford is a new town, but here's its history. Named after the man who designed roads and railways, it's a good place to test what voters think about nationalising them. A Conservative marginal, these bus routes could be Labour's path to power, but not everyone wants the government to run them.
I don't think it'll work.
Why not?
I don't think so. Because the wrong people, if Jeremy gets in, God help us all.
I think it's a good idea.
Do you? Why's that?
Because I think it's the only way to get a fairer society. The way it's going, I think, it's just greed.
They're going to be a lot more reliable.
Don't know, what do you think?
We've been waiting half an hour for this one.
Telford also started the Industrial Revolution, and it's still manufacturing. Here, they make cooker parts, and some think Labour's manifesto pledge to strengthen workers' rights is a good component.
We work long hours for minimum wage, and we could all do with more money, couldn't we?
From what I can gather, I will be voting Conservative.
They all promise you different things and they never do it. So...
Sceptical.
Yeah, very sceptical.
Despite its quiet outskirts, Telford's one of the fastest growing towns in Britain. But no specific promises from Labour today about reducing immigration.
I would have thought that we would want to try and get some kind of control on it, which we haven't got at the moment, but...
Do you trust Labour to do that?
No.
Doesn't bother me whatsoever. I'm happy to vote Labour, whether they have concrete views or they don't have concrete views on...
You're Labour through and through?
Yes.
Last time, Telford was a tight contest. Labour's made its promises, but not all voters are making any in return. Paul Brandt, ITV News, Telford.
The Green Party officially launched its manifesto today. The Green Party leader Caroline Lucas has pledged to break the monopoly of the big six energy companies by creating locally owned firms. The party has also promised to introduce a bottle deposit scheme to reduce plastic waste. The Liberal Democrats have said the UK should open its doors to 50,000 Syrian refugees. Meeting with refugees settled in Cheltenham, leader Tim Farron said the current government refugee programme was pitiful. The former Prime Minister David Cameron made a return to the campaign trail today. He met supporters in Crewe and Nantwich, a Conservative-held seat since 2008. But there was at least one person who didn't want to meet Theresa May today. This homeowner said he'd been too scared to speak to her when the Tory leader was canvassing at his home in Southampton. Well, if you're not too scared to speak to Mrs May, then get involved in ITV News Leaders Live. We've invited all the party leaders to take part in a question and answer session on Facebook. And we start with the Conservative leader, Mrs May, will be live on the ITV News Facebook page from 3 o'clock on Monday afternoon. If you want our political editor, Robert Peston, to put your questions directly to her, then head to facebook.com/ITV News. The cost of living is an issue for all the main parties, and there was a warning today from the Bank of England that it's set to rise further. Giving his quarterly health check of the economy, the bank's governor, Mark Carney, said wage growth would continue to slow as inflation rises, but he said the pain should only be temporary. Our business editor, Joel Hills, reports on how we're all feeling the squeeze.
Sell out everywhere we go at these prices. Look at the quality. Pick where you like. Thank you very much.
Almost a year ago, the people of Hull voted overwhelmingly to leave the European Union. Few regret that decision, but it has come at a cost. The impact of the weaker pound is starting to be felt.
Look at the people here now. Look at them. They're not carrying any shopping, are they? They're coming for a day out because the weather's nice. It's just hard. Nobody's got any disposable income. Everybody, and they're all after a bargain.
I wait till last year. Compared to last year to this year, there has been a big difference with people and spending power.
Today, the Governor of the Bank of England confirmed a squeeze on living standards is underway.
This is going to be a more challenging time for British households over the course of this year. Real income growth, to use our terminology, will be negative. To use theirs, wages won't keep up with prices.
The good news is the bank expects the pain to be short and sharp. Forecasts economic growth of 1.9% this year, only slightly lower than its previous forecast. As it stands, inflation is higher than pay growth. But while the bank expects inflation to peak at 2.8% by the end of this year, it believes pay growth will accelerate to just under 4% over the next 2 years. The Bank of England predicts that both the economic slowdown and the squeeze on living standards will be temporary, in part because it assumes that the process of leaving the European Union will actually turn out to be smooth, that despite the political dust-up that we've seen recently, Britain will secure a settlement that won't disrupt the flow of trade to and from these shores. That optimism is shared. In the face of uncertainty, the port of Immingham is expanding. It's a multi-million-pound bet that things go well.
I can't see Brexit hitting us that hard, the way the volumes are growing at the moment, and obviously the interviews and whatnot with other customers, they're expanding as quick as we are.
Britain is headed out into uncharted waters and at a clear and present cost. But in this part of the world, there's an unshakable belief that great things lie out over the horizon. Joel Hills, ITV News in Hull.
The former FBI Director James Comey has responded to being sacked by President Trump. He said he doesn't plan to dwell on the decision to fire him or on the way it was executed. But tonight, in a fresh interview, President Trump called him a showboat. He also claimed the FBI had been in turmoil for a year and that he'd planned to fire Mr. Comey regardless of the advice from his Deputy Attorney General. Now, being diagnosed with HIV is no longer a death sentence thanks to major advances in new treatments. A study found that young people with the disease can expect to live well into old age. Doctors say it is an incredible achievement, as Juliet Bremner reports.
Jimmy Isaacs was diagnosed with HIV nearly 3 years ago. One of a new generation of people living with the virus whose life expectancy is now the same as the national average.
It makes me feel fantastic. If anything, I might even have a longer one because I'm coming into contact with health services so much more.
Jimmy's antiretroviral regime is straightforward. The 28-year-old has a full-time job and rarely considers his HIV status.
At 6 o'clock every night, my watch goes off with a reminder. Technology, brilliant. And it lets me know that I need to take 3 pills. The 3 pills I just take with a glass of water. I have no side effects from them. I don't have to take them with food. I can take them wherever I am.
It's a dramatic change in 2 decades. A 20-year-old who started treatment when it was first available in 1996 could have expected to live to be 68. Now a 20-year-old treated since 2010 is expected to live to the age of 78, pretty much the normal lifespan.
It is a deadly disease and there is no known cure.
Back in the 1980s, an HIV diagnosis was terrifying, too often a death sentence.
In the early days, there were really significant side effects, serious diarrhoea, nausea, skin conditions. And over time, as drugs have evolved, we've got drugs that are much easier to take. In some cases, that's just one pill once a day, with or without food. And because of that, people are able to take the drugs better. Therefore, the virus remains suppressed or undetectable.
Testing is simple, but 1 in 7 who have the virus are still undiagnosed, despite the advances. Juliet Bremner, ITV News.
Still to come on the ITV Evening News, the holiday insurance scam, a huge rise in bogus tummy bug claims.
How much will we get?
I mean, it's like, listen,
£3 grand each. £3 grand each?
I swear
That's
down.
more than we paid for the holiday.
And the surprise reunion of a student nurse and the woman who inspired and cared for her when she had cancer as a child. Those stories and more after the break. Hello again, welcome back. ITV News can reveal that there's been a massive increase in fake insurance claims for holiday sickness. It's costing hotels in popular Spanish resorts tens of millions of pounds in compensation. And we've been given exclusive footage showing how touts are encouraging holidaymakers to make fraudulent claims. Here's our consumer editor Chris Choi on the sickness scam.
If you're heading to a popular destination this summer, you could be the target for a new type of tout. At these resorts and more, they encourage compensation claims for holiday food poisoning. But we have evidence that some are using tactics that could land you in big trouble. According to this secretly filmed tout, all you need is a bottle of stomach medicine.
All it needs to be is like you get some Imodium, you just do it off your own. All you need to do is take a photo of it.
We haven't been ill, we just go to the chemist, get a
You won't even ask you a question, it's medical evidence there, done.
And that's it?
That's it, I swear to you. That's what I'm getting my £3 grand back as well. I'll be doing it.
Just how widespread is that kind of activity?
Some of our members are reporting increases of up to 1,000% in terms of the number of cases that are being found. We know that those cases, many of those cases are bogus.
Benidorm. Here, undercover investigators worked for package travel operator Jet2 Holidays. They handed us the tape. In it, this tout helpfully spells out how the scam works.
You go, oh, I felt ill, but yeah, I didn't do anything about it. And they go, all right, we'll have to take your word for it kind of thing. Here's a grand.
Our research reveals reports of suspect touts in popular summer resorts. Hoteliers in Benidorm, Valencia and along the Costa Blanca say illness claims are now costing them £50 million a year. In Mallorca, hoteliers have told us of a 700% rise in these claims. On Cyprus, we've learned hoteliers are in talks with the British High Commission, and the touts can be persuasive.
Guarantee you won't regret it.
Well, we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
And then how much will we get?
I mean, it's like, listen,
£3 grand each.
£3 grand each?
I swear
That's more than we paid for the holiday.
I know.
The firm this tout represents says he wasn't following their policies, and legitimate claims firms say they only deal in genuine cases. But lurking in the getaway crowds this year are those intent on fraud, and officials are warning that if you get involved, your final holiday destination could be jail. Chris Choi, ITV News.
More on our investigation on bogus holiday sickness claims on our website, itv.com/news. British tourists have been stranded at Lisbon airport after the fuel pumping system there failed. Flights out of the Portuguese capital were grounded, leaving thousands unable to get home, with some tourists having to sleep on the floor. And
magic telling bone, summon the vices.
Jeffrey Belden, who played Catweasel in the 1970s children's TV show, has died at the age of 93. The actor, also known for his role in Wurzel Gummidge, passed away peacefully at home. Now, Manchester United are just 90 minutes away from booking themselves a place in the Europa League final. They take on Celta Vigo at Old Trafford tonight in the second leg of their semi-final. Our sports editor Steve Scott is there. So, Steve, can they do it?
Yes, Mary, they can. In fact, they're expected to. That's mainly because they won the first leg 1-0, and that one is an away goal. Jose Mourinho has described tonight's match as the most important in the club's history. Well, of course, it isn't, but it is very important for him. Manchester United currently sits sixth in the Premier League with 3 games to go, so that means automatic qualification for the Champions League via that route is kind of out of his hands. But the winners of this cup do get an automatic Champions League place. That's why he's prioritised it, and that's why if he fails, well, his reputation will be harmed. But not only that, if he fails, the quality of player that he'll be able to attract to Old Trafford to play here next season will be diminished without any Champions League football.
Steve Scott at Old Trafford, thank you very much indeed. And finally tonight, when Klara Markovic was a child, she was successfully treated for a rare form of leukemia. The incredible care she received inspired her to train to be a nurse herself. And by a remarkable quirk of fate, Klara is now training with the very matron who was one of those who treated her when she was a child. Sally Lockwood has the story.
Klara always wanted to follow in the footsteps of the nurses who helped save her life. Little did she know when she began training in Southampton, one of her colleagues was one of those special people.
I was on my 3rd day of placement and this woman walks in.
Indeed.
And I'm looking at her across the room and it takes a minute and it's quite embarrassing because I'm sort of leaning like that. And I'm like, oh gosh, and she recognised me and I recognised her, and that was the moment. It wasn't even arranged.
No, it was very
amazing.
Emotional actually,
Yeah.
and it was lovely to see her, and the fact that she's come into children's nursing after what she's been through as a child, it's just inspirational.
And here they are together 16 years ago. Klara is 4 years old, very poorly but happy, dancing with Nurse Kate. She was given just a 50% chance of survival after she was diagnosed with leukemia. A clinical trial helped save her life, and she always remembered the nurse who helped her to feel brave.
I remember it was Halloween while I was there, so we were trick-or-treating along the ward, and we played on the hobby horses. You know, I didn't have very many friends at that time because I was stuck in my isolation cubicle. So the people you saw were the nurses, and they became my friends, and I think looking back, that's all I could ever see myself doing, because as a 4-year-old, that was my role model. That was who I looked up to.
Klara knows only too well just how important paediatricians are to the children they treat. The nurse she never forgot inspired her life after she'd saved it. Sally Lockwood, ITV News.
Great story, and that is all for now. Tom Bradby will be here with news at 10, but for me and all the team, have a great evening. Bye-bye.